Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Today. Thank you for having us in your wonderful studio.
Thank you.
So last time we talked to you, that was the Sandspits episode, you didn't have a space. So can you kind of talk to us about, I guess, your journey from graduating from Cuesta and now to here?
Yeah, I guess I repeat this a lot, but it all started with the Sandspits, to be honest. As I talked to Sim about this already, but they're like family to me now. They're so cool. I really love those kids, and yeah, I got to call them kids. I was just really inspired by recording them at Cuesta College, and I was like, this can't stop. I have to keep going. So I went around and talked to my girlfriend, and she thought I was out of my mind, but that is pretty normal. And then started to invest in some equipment and try to get all of this started. And somewhere in the beginning of that journey, we had an opportunity to use this space that belongs to her family, along with the other houses that I already mentioned to you guys. And this very first time I ever saw this little room, I was like, oh my God, I want a recording here. And she was like, you can definitely use it. So that's essentially how, it just belongs to the family, and I'm really fortunate to be able to use it. So.
Nice. So why don't we start here? What are we working with here?
Okay, so Margot Sinclair, this absolutely wonderful band. They've already been in here and recorded 3 songs. And you guys were talking to me about doing the studio tour, and I was pretty certain that Margot had more music that they wanted to put out. They probably have a bunch more. But I thought, what a good match that would be, because they already worked in here, they already know me, so it's going to feel really cozy with them. Just waiting until they get here. They're super cool. They actually should be here in about half an hour. They're going to come in at 11. So this setup is, since I've already worked with him, I already know how Philip plays the drums, or Kyle and I. Kyle is the singer, Margot Sinclair. He came in yesterday to help me out, to put and for him to learn a little bit about the microphones and all that. Yeah, so we came in and got everything wired, and so I guess this is my beautiful iMac. That's really starting to get a little bit old, okay. But it actually does everything that I can possibly want. So everything is pretty much set up for the session. So this is essentially the project template that we're going to use. We got every track that you see in here that is colored is set to record. So
talk a little bit about the software that you're using.
This is Reaper. I've been using it for, I said 20 years. I hope they've been around for 20 years, because that's how long it feels that I've been using it for. Maybe a little bit less. I honestly don't remember, but I'm very used to it. Super lightweight. Costs, what is it, $70 some dollars, $72?
I think you can get it for free too if you just keep saying that you want it for free.
And you know what? It's so good, and it's so stable, and it's so lightweight, and it's so easy to use that what's $70 for something that's allow you to? I have Pro Tools. I could have gone that route, and I kind of started that way, but I don't know. It's just clunky to me. I used it at Cuesta College, and it was a really good thing that I did use it. And who knows, sometime in the future, some people may be sending me mixes and projects to mix and everything. And if they're already in Pro Tools, of course, it'll be a lot better for me to go ahead and use what they want me to use, or collaborate or whatnot. So be on the same software. But
do you have a certain template that you use on Reaper? Because I know that you can customize it a lot.
Yeah, every project of mine starts like this, because, well, assuming it's a rock band with 2 guitarists, a bass player, and a singer, which is pretty standard. Not anything wrong with it whatsoever. But so I don't have to set anything up again. I just have a starting file that already pulls everything up. Even the, if you see the color tracks, they already have the channel that they're going. So it starts, the mixer over there starts, so it goes in order 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 24. And there you have kick mic, snare mic, tom mic. You have overhead 1, overhead 2, and then another set of overheads that I like to use, overhead 3 and 4. That way I can kind of try different microphones, different positions and all that. Different placements, and see if there's one that is more satisfactory to to what I'm going after on the project. And sometimes the band likes one microphone set over the other, and I try to make them fairly different. And maybe later, after we record a little bit of Philip doing sound check, we can go back and take a listen and see, oh, they are actually different. Yeah. Then, of course, I like to get the sound of this room. It's not, it's just a great thing to have, and I found that this is my absolute favorite spot for it. There's something about it. I don't know what it is, but I've tried it in the middle of the room. I just don't seem to get the same. And we're talking about the drums here, not the other instruments. So there is another room mic here, but I use that more as a talkback. So when everybody has headphones, they can all hear pretty much out of a microphone in the middle of the room.
Is that what that's?
This is my little spaceship. This mic came from Europe somewhere. I think it was a mic that was built in, I'm not sure if it was it's a Sennheiser. It's somewhere in the 50s or 60s. But I think it looks funky. So I thought, why not use that? So this is how I talk to the band when they have headphones on. Mm-hmm. Of course, it can be any microphone. It doesn't matter. But actually, these microphones sound really good on toms. Actually, I've gotten good snare sounds out of it. It sounds good on vocals. It's just different. It has an old vibe to it. It's hard to explain. And these things are, you kind of got to put the same sound source with a lot of different microphones to really start to tell the difference.
Yeah, so it's not something that you do a lot, like move around the microphones?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Kyle and I finished, first we tuned the drums. Yeah. We spent quite a bit of time. So we tuned the top and the bottom heads of the snare. There's also a different snare. The wood snares down at the bottom has a vastly different sound than the Black Beauty that's up here at the top. And that's probably the one we're going to use today. I'll let Philip see if he wants to listen to the other one and see if he likes it. But yeah, so we were essentially trying to figure out the angles that the microphones are going into the shells and seeing if there's something that we like better. And it was a pretty substantial difference.
Do you want to show us?
Yeah, so I think mic placement techniques is something that's, it's really up to the engineer. I don't think there's anything that's completely, like if somebody says, my tom-tom should be pointed, 90 degrees directly into the top, well, somebody might like it 90 degrees, somebody might like 45 degrees, some people might like to put it parallel. But the sounds that you get from that, they're just different. So you just set them up, try them in as many different ways as you can and see which one seems to be the most natural. If you hit your drum and a certain placement seems to capture what you just heard, and it sounds like the tom-tom that I just played, then we're pretty close. So instead of going and trying to get too technical, I just put them there and play it, and I was like, you know what, that sounded really good. And we noticed that yesterday that when we were going on this direction, which I've done plenty of times before, it's a very different quality of sound. And we listened to both of them, and we're like, no, that doesn't sound as much like this. There's something in there that doesn't seem to quite translate. So it's preference. The different engineers with different microphones, with different instruments are going to do different things at different times. And to me, as long as it sounds natural, like when Philip plays, and then we hear it like standing in the middle of the room just with our ears, and then we play it back, and it's like, you know what? That sounds pretty much like Philip playing the drums. So there's not seem to be a lot of artifacts and things that are making it sound like something different. Now, in the mixing process, if you want to go in and start making changes according to the desires of the band, or as a producer or as an engineer, if you have a certain particular flavor that you like those drums to be like, then of course you can go ahead and do it in the mixing stage. I prefer things to sound as you hear them. But people are like, oh yeah, I heard that if you compress the drums a lot, it's gonna sound like this. And I'm like, well, you're not that drummer, and you don't play like that drummer, and that drum set is not this drum set, so it's not gonna be the same, no matter what you think. But yeah, we can do all kinds of things to try and modify sounds. And a lot of times, if the performance was a good performance, then it seems like no matter what you do, it's going to sound good.
Do you get like a lot of, I feel like you talk a lot about the drum sound. You talk a lot about the other instruments too, but this seems to be like your thing. How has it changed since you started recording drums to now with, all these mics? And
I think it wasn't necessarily I think the evolution of miking drums came from tuning. Before I started the Rec Hub, at Cuesta, we had a great drum kit there, and you just put a bunch of mics around it, and that's it. So I was like, well, there's got to be a little bit more. I'm geeky enough. I want to look into this a little bit. So I started trying to figure out why does this snare sound like that? And you hear these records, and it's like, why can I not get that sound? Well, there are a lot of different snares out there. You've got to try different ones. Well, there are different heads. There are heads that produce different sounds when they're hit. Well, they can be tuned up and down. The top can be tuned up and down. The bottom can be tuned up and down. What material is the drum made out of? And an enormous combination of things that can really alter the characteristic of that sound and your end product. And I thought, well, I'm going to try and get different snares and different heads, and I'm going to start tuning that stuff. I have like a little tuner that works for drum heads really well. Kyle and I used that quite a bit yesterday. Going after, you hit it and you see what frequency it's vibrating on, and you're like, it needs to be higher, and you do it all the way around all the lugs until you get to the frequency that you want, and then you do the same thing at the bottom, and you play it back. Now let's put the microphone in many different positions and see which one sounds the best, and just keep going. So I think just the interest, rather than, this is a pretty good drum set. Just put the mics on it. Don't worry about tuning it. It's going to sound good. Then probably, like I said, if a good performance pretty much beats anything, in my opinion. But I was like, there's probably a little bit more to it. Maybe I should just go ahead and investigate. Mm-hmm. So the mics are still, the overheads they are both going to sound pretty good. They're going to sound a little bit different. It's going to be fine. These mics are going to do a great job in capturing the shells, and so I think it was pretty much investigating all the options that you have as far as tuning and what kind of equipment that you use.
And all that investigation and the time that you spend with Kyle, and I'm assuming with other drummers, how does that kind of foster your relationship with the band, not just on drums, but guitar, bass, vocals?
Well, if nothing else, from the very beginning, I feel that they know that I care. So it's a lot of fun doing this. So that's number one. You got to enjoy your journey, right? So I'm just having a really good time. So I do the same thing with Jack and the synth bits many times. I was like, hey, Jack, what are you doing? Nothing. Come over. Let's put a bunch of mics around and let's play. Let's figure out what we want to do. So I think I think people start to trust me and feel really at ease, because they're like, this person is not just, doing this for whatever reason. They actually like doing it, and it's pretty obvious that he really wants us to succeed. So I think that's the advantage of spending a lot of time with the band prior to any project. And I do like to do drum day. I like to come in I usually record on Saturdays, but on Fridays I always want to, if the whole band can be there, great, but I like to set up the drums. And this is the studio kit. But other bands, they use my ride and my floor tom, and they'll bring everything else. And then they won't. I bet Philip's going to change all of this, the way that's set up, because it's pretty hideous right now. I like everything really close to me. Some people I think Philip likes for it to be out, but I guess we'll find out. That part I don't remember. Kyle kind of set it up the way that he likes it already. We'll find out. But it's really fun to come in the day before and also see how different everybody's setup is. Some people like playing with the cymbals all the way out here. So when our Earthship came by to record, I had set it up like that. And Lauren, the drummer, she said, first of all, we want to use my cymbals. And she had awesome cymbals, really. I think she might have used one of mine. I can't remember. And she puts everything down here. The entire kit is like this little setup really close to her, but she sounds amazing. Yeah, so I can't wait for you guys to hear that one too.
So what kind of microphones are
Well, the overheads are condensers. These are the big ones. They are made by Orma Audio. They are essentially copies of the U87s that are incredibly famous, very common in all of the big studios in the world. A lot of these microphones that became renowned over time, they kind of lost their patent just because of time. And then they become kind of public domain, and then other companies can go in and make copies of them. So because of their price tag, I don't have to pay $2,000 for U87. I'll pay, $500-$600 on reverb. So that's that. These are AKG's C214s. They're kind of like the little bit lower end compared to the 414s, which are also sort of like industry standard AKG mics. These are the first two mics that I had as far as really good condenser mics. But I do have the Orma Audio, they're WA14s, just like the one that's right to the right of Ryan right there, that I'm using as a room mic. I've tried them, and they're supposedly nicer and more expensive than the C214s. I've tried them both. I like them both. They sound a little bit different. They have different qualities, but they do their jobs as capturing detail, which is the condensers are very good for. Then there's a company called Audix that makes somewhat affordable microphones that they often sell in sets. So I bought their drum set thing that came with 7 or 8 microphones. And so that's what I use for the tom-toms. And if there are more toms, I have more of them, came with 4 of them. It's an Audix D2. They're typical condenser microphones. They're really nice because they're little, and the company sends you the clips as well, so that in 2 seconds I can mount them. So I have one here. I don't mic the bottom of my toms. So far, I have been able to get pretty good sound just going with the top. I've tried to do both of them before, and I was like, okay, sounds good as well. So that works really well for me. I have the bigger one that's inside of the kick drum is an Audix D6. It's their standard go-to kick drum microphone, and I put it inside right there at the opening. I've tried angling it to the side of the drum a little bit, and I tried it pointed straight at the beater. They both sound good. They sound a little bit different. And then I complement that with one outside of the, it's an Australian microphone called Alien 8. It's a great mic. I love that thing. And the kick sound that you get out of those two microphones is completely different. Of course, one is inside of the instrument, and the other one is outside. So just that is, of course, going to be very different one from the other. But when you put them in conjunction with one another, sometimes one wants to get a little louder than the other because it just sounds better depending on the song and the vibe. Other times you use the inside one. Other times you use the outside ones. So that's it. I have, this is also an Audix condenser. It's ADX 51, I think is the name of the mic. Good general all-around condenser mic as well. I like using condenser mics on my snares. I think I got used to it, to be honest. It's not like I have a proper reason. I think other microphones will probably do a really good job as well. And I like pointing it kind of like I have the toms. I don't like it pointing directly down onto the drum. I like to have it a little bit more parallel. And I have this one that's pointed at the snare on the side. This gets an extremely bright sound out of the snare, but it gets a lot of hi-hat on it too, so I have to do a little work to see if I can take a little bit of that out. But I can use just to add a little bit more vibrance to the one that's at the top in case it's not coming out the way that I want. And sometimes I won't use it at all. And of course, the overheads are picking up everything, including the snare. So I don't use a snare on my hi-hat. I think hi-hats are extremely loud and obnoxious. So sorry about that.
Okay.
So
No, it was about,
yeah, if you're beating the heck out of that thing and these guys are not picking it up, there's something going on. So as engineer Steve Albini said before, if there was a negative microphone, one that sucks out the sound of the hi-hat, that's the one that he would place on his hi-hats. Yeah, just a little joke.
Awesome.
I can't claim ownership of that joke. I like it a lot, but I want to, but no.
So you talked a little bit about the room mic. Can we migrate over there
Sure.
and hear more about that? Can you explain a little bit about what a room mic actually is and what it does?
Yeah, the idea is just to capture the essence of the room itself. So if we're having a conversation in here, and then we walk outside and have the same conversation, our voices, it seems like, is going to sound different. So you go into a bathroom and it sounds echoey. You go into different places and you're going to have the characteristics of your sound reflect the environment that you're in. So essentially, I'm not trying to capture the guitar sounds that are going to be in Kyle singing. I'm not trying to capture that with this. So the room mic is essentially a room microphone for the drums. So in addition of all the close proximity mics that we have that are going to capture the drum set, those are not going to capture as much of the environment because they're very close to the drums. It's not like they won't capture any of it. It's just, it's the same thing. You can do it with your ears. If you get really close to that kid, it's probably going to hurt your ears a little bit, and pretend that you're the microphone and just getting really close over here and somebody's playing, you're going to hear those drums really loud right next to you, right? But if you start to back away, you're going to start to get the feel of, hey, you know what? If my eyes are closed, somebody's playing drums inside of a room. You can't just tell. Now, if somebody plays the drums outside, it's going to sound a lot different, right? So that's essentially, so you get your closed mics balanced the way that you might prefer or the way that might please the band, and then you may choose to blend in a little bit of that ambience that you're capturing from the microphones that are around the room just to kind of make it sound lively. Like, well, we recorded in this room, let's hear it, you know. Sometimes people talk about acoustic treatment and the quality of the sound quality that a room might produce, and some rooms are better than others. People like tall ceilings for drums and walls that are not parallel. Well, they are parallel in here because this wasn't built for the purpose, but yet it has a particular sound, and I like it quite a bit. So essentially that's what those microphones are doing. I kind of put my room mics lower to the ground. Some people put them even like laying on the carpet. You tend to get a lot more of the low frequency content of your drums as you get closer and closer to the bottom. And up here you hear more of the high stuff. And I think the room mics sound really good. A little bit lower. This one is higher because I'm actually not going to use that unless it sounds good. Can always listen back and see what's happening with it. But this is just so everybody can talk, and they're going to be wearing headphones, including myself, and we're having conversations while, you know, everybody has their headphones on. So that's what the purpose of this one is. I could put a bunch of them around so everybody has their own, but nah, this one's good enough.
Do you ever play with room treatment, like with the mattresses as you would with like microphones to mess with the room sound? Is that possible?
It's possible to try to deaden a room a lot, and I try not to do that. I put the beds around just because I think it kind of tames it just on that side to the proximity of the microphones. But I have to be honest, I haven't. You know, that's a great experiment because Philip could get in here. We can have him play a beat for 10 seconds, and then we'll go in and simply remove that and see if there's any kind of artifacts that are being added to the microphones from those waveforms bouncing harder and coming back into the microphones, and if that's creating any problems. It may be that the drum set might sound even better because there might be a little bit more, you know, echoes in here because this, whether you want it or not, it absorbs a little bit of the sound. So, but I've spent more time with the microphones than I have with trying to do anything else with this room. I like that it sounds lively. And it's like anything else. You record it and you play it back. It's like, okay, it's sounding pretty good. So we move on.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then can we talk a little bit about the vocal booth?
Yeah, you guys should give it a shout to Clear Sonic. They're great people too. They've helped me out a lot. They gave me a really good deal on all of this. I told them what I was doing, and they thought it was cool, so they're going to help me out a little bit.
Wow.
And so these are acrylic panels that I originally, before I knew that I could record in this room, I got them. There are 4 panels here, but I usually have I have a total of 6, which can make it quite a wide area for you to put a full drum set in it. So that way I would be able to make the rec hub sort of like I can go to anybody's place and record drums. It may not be ideal, but that was set up for me to have a way to begin without having a studio per se, or of course this room. So now that I don't use it for drums anymore, because of everything that we just talked about, I started setting this up as a vocal booth, so that I think every single band that I've recorded this year in 2023, everybody came in to redo their vocals, not because there was microphone bleed or anything like that, because of the drums, but because they wanted to redo their performances. And it was definitely worth the time, because it's so, like, singing, it would be so hard for me to do, and it's such a private, it's just such a powerful thing to expose yourself to. And I feel like you got to be happy with, I feel like, I missed the guitar riff, that doesn't sound as good, but it's okay. But with singing, I don't know, like, people should have the right to try and get their vocals right as much as they want to. At least I would, but I don't sing, so I sing a little bit in the shower. So anyway, but I set it up anyway because it's not impossible that a singer might walk out of the recording going, oh my gosh, that's the best performance I've ever, recorded, or I have never sang our song better than what I did right now. I'm like, okay, well, I have it now. So yeah, drums will come into the microphone a little bit. Am I worried about it? Not a bit. No. So this is not like a perfect setup where literally the microphone won't hear anything except for the performer's voice. But I have found from testing that little bit of the bleed that's coming in there, going into rock music, of them singing into these wonderful microphones, it's no problem. Yeah, it sounds really good. So, and it's nice. I think it looks neat, and it, like if I were a singer and I had my own little booth, it's like your little spaceship. It's kind of cool, you hang out in there, and it's kind of like your own space, and then I have another warm audio microphone in there. That's their version of the 47 tube mics that were very popular way back in the day, and of course they're still very popular, extremely expensive. So thank God that now we can go and buy affordable versions of these things. So that's what I have for Kyle to sing today. He sounds good on that microphone, but then he sounds good on anything, even on this little lapel mic. Not that it's a bad lapel mic. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one is also a tube. That's the 67, the same sort of story. An expensive mic made affordable by wonderful companies. What else do I have? And that's it. Of course, I have this side of the room.
Yeah, let's get into this side of the room. All right.
Yeah, so essentially, I put the guitars over this way. So I have them. I usually have the amps. I try to tell the performers to turn it down as much as they can, so that the sounds that's, especially the room microphone that's picking up the drums in the way that I was mentioning to you guys, and also the mics that are directly over the set, for them not to hear too much of the guitar. But a little bit of that sound coming into those mics is also not a problem, and it's pretty normal. But still, I try to tell them to play a little bit more on the quiet side, unless they absolutely need to blast it to get the sound that they're after. And if that's the case, go for it. Mm-hmm. But usually, I don't have any problem whatsoever. So, yeah. So Luke's going to be playing here on this side, and his amp is actually already in place. There's 2 microphones ready to go on it, and I'm pretty used to his setup already. So I've mic'd him once in my house and once here, so I'm pretty confident in a matter of minutes we can get him going pretty good. And then I usually set the second guitar player's gear pointed at that wall as well, and I cover it with some stuff as well to kind of isolate both guitars a little bit from the rest of the room, and put some mics on them, and that's it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you build this board, the pedal board?
No, this is not mine. This is actually Luke's equipment already. There's a lot of, this is Carson's equipment. Carson is the other guitar player. Yeah, so this is already all of their stuff. So the kit is mine, but the instruments usually the band provides. So with the drums, I like any other studio. I have a lot of options for people to use, but people are of course welcome to use all of mine or as much of mine as they like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through this beast right here?
Yeah, so this is a company called Presonus. They're a pretty typical company that makes all kinds of cool things for us. And this is just a live mixer. So if you go to, any bar to see a performance and somebody's walking around with an iPad, there's going to be something like this sitting somewhere, and they're essentially controlling the mixer from their iPad. You can also do it from the computer, and some of these also come with they look more like a console, so they still have the same. For example, this one has 24 inputs, so they would have a console with faders and buttons and all of that stuff as well, which of course is a really nice thing to have. But for the purposes of portability, this is pretty much perfect for what the Rec Hub is doing right now. I can set this up very quickly. So this is a typical live mixer. It works wonders. It's fairly affordable as well compared to a $50,000 console. So yeah, it's quite a difference. So this allows me to hook up all of these wonderful microphones and have more to spare and not run out or anything. Great, really good, really amazing quality as well. Just lots of cables. Just a big noodle down there, so maybe you don't have to show the noodles.
I think we're getting there.
Yeah, and then I have 3 outs on the back going to 3 different headphone amps. So I could have more, but essentially each one of these I can control the mixes with my iPad. That way on your headphones. I have a mix set up for Philip on the drums, so if he wants more guitar, more bass, less, if he wants more kick, whatever he wants, I can go ahead and give that to him. And usually drummers will have a mix that's a bit different than everybody else because they're sitting on top of a very loud instrument and they're already hearing what they're playing, even if they don't have anything coming through their headphones. But it might be that they want a little bit of the overheads in there, a little bit of the snare, whatever he wants. And then I have a mix that are going to be going out to Kyle singing and to Carson and Luke playing guitar. So whatever they want to hear. And their heads, more of one, less of the other. And usually bass players will also have a different mix because it's a little bit harder to hear bass on headphones. So usually they was like, please turn the bass way up. Yeah, so I have 3 different ones. That way, people can kind of hear what they want to hear, and the better they hear, the better they're going to perform. So that's what these little guys are. They're Behringer headphone amps. They're about as normal, typical as you get. But it's cool because when I was younger and I was recording and things like that, we did everything in mono. So even with everything was right through the middle of your head. But now with the setup that I have now, we can actually pan guitars left and right, and you can have singing in the middle, and you can have a little bit more of stereo image in your head, which also, especially when there's 2 guitar players playing at the same time, for Philip to hear them, it's a lot nicer when you go right and left with the cue system. So that's what these are.
Is this a pool table?
This is a pool table.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So this is perfect for me to.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. To get all of the, which reminds me, we got to turn turn this on so it starts to heat up the tubes and the tube mics.
Yeah, they're gonna be here soon.
Yeah, so probably want to turn this one on too. Make sure everything's connected.
While you're doing this, I have one last question.
Okay.
I guess so you've been recording slow bands for a couple of years now, right?
I don't think it has been a couple of years yet.
Okay.
Just a little bit over a year.
Okay, a little bit over a year.
If that. Yeah, about a year. Yeah.
Has there been any trends that you felt in the slow music scene thus far, or is it just kind of different per band, or? I don't know, what is it like kind of being in the scene from this perspective, from the recording, producing perspective?
I think I've been really impressed with, I think there's a lot of quality here. Like I went into recording, like I'm really going to do this, and I was involved with the synth bits, right? But I got really attached to their music. So there's no way around that. Of course, the music is amazing, but when you also like the people, it's even easier to like the music. And then I was all excited because all these other bands are going to start coming to me and recording. I'm like, I'm really curious what they're going to be like, you know? Because you get better as you live longer. So the younger you are, you haven't perhaps had as much time to practice, and you might not be as good of a musician, and you're evolving in your musical journey. So you're getting a lot of bands of people that have just started playing. With Joone, Mia had picked up the drums, a year ago? And I'm sitting here going, gosh, when I started playing drums, after a year, if I were to record anything, so I started to associate it with me. I'm like, does she know how to play? Yeah, she knows how to play the drums. Mm-hmm. She knows how to play the drums really well. And it sounded absolutely amazing. So it's really cool. I feel like people are really dedicated, and there's a lot of good music here and a lot of variety. So I was expecting to be recording in a certain type, in a certain style, but it seems like everybody that comes through here is just like, wow, you guys are all from the same place. You don't sound anything you like. The genres are different. You guys have heard of Krooks?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they walked in here. I had no idea that that's what they're going to do. I heard a little bit of their music, but I just didn't know. They started playing. I'm like, oh my God, that is so cool. It's so different. Yeah, so many different elements, and people are still picking up a lot of like vibes from like a lot older bands. I always talk about Helmet. I really like Helmet, and I feel like that there's some ways that Tanner sings with Krooks that reminds me of Helmet. What was his name? Page Hamilton, I think. But anyway, yeah. So I was like, man, you sound like so-and-so. He's like, oh my God, thank you so much. And, you know, and we're mixing his music, and it's like, he likes to have, with the shoegaze style, to have the vocals back in the mix a little bit. And I'm like, pull it up. He's like, can you drop it half a dB? I'm like, yeah. And then he turns his back, and I'm like, whoop. But whenever I'm back, you're listening really well when I hear your voice. But yeah, so just a lot of different styles and a lot of pretty talented people coming through. So trend-wise, I think that's it. I mean, I just think that people are good, and there's a lot of different styles. I see that people play a lot of house shows.
Yeah.
So I see that, and I imagine it must be so difficult because there's no way you can sound that good. You just can't. And if you have a lot of people and you're playing outside at somebody's yard, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if you go back, 50 yards, I bet you can't hear anything.
Yeah.
Right? So like, I imagine like there's all these people in front of me. The band is all the way over there, and they don't have a proper PA system.
They can't even hear themselves.
They can't hear themselves.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to actually do it, because if you can play in that kind of setting enough, and then Margot and Earthship are going to be playing at the Siren next week. So I can't wait, because I've seen them at the Libertine. So it's still a little bit basic sound-wise, because I think they're still kind of developing their sound in there. But the Siren, of course, it's set up for music, and everything usually sounds pretty cool in there. So I was super curious. I'm like, I want to hear you guys playing live with a nice setup. So
cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions?
Are you interested in doing sort of live sounds for like house shows or anything? Or I guess not house shows.
Yeah,
but just
you can't really.
Yeah, you can't do sound for that. But.
No, that wouldn't be my scene.
Interesting.
I mean, it's honestly, I don't know if you guys want to even put that on the video or not, but I mean, there's underage drinking going on, and that I don't need to be around that. It just doesn't, like, the Rec Hub is a nonprofit dedicated to get young musicians an opportunity that they might not otherwise have because of financial constraints. Just facilitating people to have an opportunity when they're really young, which is really hard. And for me, it would be hard to be. It's not that we don't need to go there, but yeah, it's just probably better. Yeah. But Yeah, and the other thing about live sound is, like here, I take all of my equipment. I'm in my cozy little room. Everything is like well looked after and everything. But if you go to live shows, there's cables everywhere. People are stepping on things, and things are getting dusty and all that. And I put so much love into getting this off the ground. And I have a system now. This works every single time.
Yeah.
There's been not a lot, but a good number of bands that already come through here, and it has worked every single time. There's be a lot of releases coming out soon. So I want to make sure to protect that investment. So
Yeah. Okay, one more question. It's a fun one. We ask everyone, and it'll be really quick, hopefully. But we ask all our bands, what is your dream festival lineup? If you could have anyone on a festival, living or dead, who would you put on it?
Oh, you mean not the local bands? Like
Everyone. You can put local bands on it, but
so
just
okay. So how many
artist.
bands?
However many you want.
So
However
I'm gonna
many
go to a
you want.
festival for maybe a day or two.
Uh-huh.
I would have Shellac of North America, no matter what. I would have, can it be people that have passed?
Yeah, dead or
So they
alive.
come back.
Yeah.
Morphine, Ween. I would have the John Spencer Blues Explosion. Slint. Oh, that would be amazing. Like amazing. Definitely the Melvins. Gosh, if I can hear all the, oh my gosh, that's probably enough. But it would be great to hear some of the most famous bands too, like Pink Floyd, and though I've seen them before. It was 1994, yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big, I like Rolling Stones, but I've seen them, and it was great, but they wouldn't be part of the lineup. Yeah, I think Pink Floyd out of the old ones would be my go-to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all. Thank you so much.